Good morning to all of you. Welcome to the program agenda. I sincerely hope you have managed to get some rest for this final day of the week. It's June 18, parang June 18 pa rin. I keep seeing the same date. I don't know. The more things change, the more they remain the same. But it is June 18, 2021. It's a Friday. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, welcoming you on board. And we will go for a cruise on information today. And we hope that you will learn from the interviews that we conduct with our guests here on the program that you can watch via Cignal TV channels 8 and channels 250 for high definition television. And for those of you who don't have Cignal TV or are on the go or remotely located, you can also get us via facebook.com/onenewsph, or if you are a Cignal subscriber, please download the Cignal Play app so you can carry on watching us. And for those of you abroad or those of you who would like to see past programs and even the replays, you can also watch us via YouTube. Just press in or enter in One News PH. Yan na po, no? So there you go. And today, we will have a couple of interviews, particularly regarding the virus, okay? But because there's some things that's happening. But before we do that, let's go to the headlines of the Philippine Star. There you go. Poor COVID response pulls down the Philippines in competitiveness. 1.5 million more Sinovac doses arrive in the Philippines. The Department of Finance sees further economic opening as workers get jobs. Confusion reigns over face shields. Ayan na po, yung sinasabi kong hindi Confucius says, it is Confucian said. Okay, on the lower half, we have the tally of COVID cases still high, 6,637 new cases. And for government-private sector, private sector urged to prepare for next normal. Mukhang recycled normal lang naman eh. Ex-mayor on Rodi's narco list, shot dead. Hospital Command Center seeing shortage of healthcare workers. The good news, the Philippine Star top recipient of the Rotary Manila Journalism Award. And to wrap it up, you have this info. More power outages loom until August. Hindi po dahil rainy season na at lumalamig na at hindi na kayo nag-aircon, nag-electric pa na lang, okay na ang kuryente. Nope. It seems that there will be more power outages possibly in August. Now, let's go to the stories behind those headlines. The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Diseases, or IATF, recommended to President Rodrigo Duterte to continue the mandatory wearing of face shields in enclosed areas and indoor spaces. This includes hospitals, schools, workplaces, and commercial establishments. The appeal came after the president himself said he agrees with the suggestion to remove face shields except in hospitals. Okay. Meanwhile, the national government has started sending additional healthcare workers in other regions. According to one hospital command center, hospitals nationwide are suffering from manpower shortage due to increasing COVID-19 cases outside NCR. And the Department of Finance expects further reopening of the economy as vaccination of essential workers in Metro Manila kicks off. With this, the department hopes more workers would regain the jobs they lost during the COVID-19 pandemic. Sana naman po, kasi ang problema natin, mabakunahan na yung mga trabahador, makagalaw na, walang masakyan, may masakyan naman, makakaipit-ipit sa traffic, pagdating sa opisina, hindi lahat bakunado. Ayan na naman po, round 1. Okay, let's go to today's quote, and baka magtaka kayo, but it is timely. Today's quote comes from the book of Deuteronomy in the Bible, chapter 5, verse 16. Honor thy father and thy mother, as the Lord thy God has commanded, so that thy days may be prolonged and that it may go well with thee. Many of us only know or have learned the honor thy father and thy mother part. But it is the only one in the 10 commandments, whether you are Catholic, Protestant, born again, evangelical, Lutheran, whatever, the honor thy father, I think it's the 5th commandment, is the only commandment with a blessing or a condition or a promise. Okay? Honor thy father and thy mother so that all may go well with you. Para lahat ay maging maayos at humaba ang buhay mo. Hindi po yan. It is not contingent on whether your father is good, whether your father is honorable. It is a command, and therefore we follow. And because we followed, we are promised this blessing. I was not always a good son. I had my bad days, bad years with my father. Kuminsan nga, pinagyabang ko pa. But when I fully surrendered my life to Jesus Christ, I learned that, took that to heart. I simply obeyed. And for the last 3 years of my father's life, we actually made peace, became friends again. And here I am. I am blessed with an inheritance from my father, Cito Beltran. So I'm bringing this to you because Sunday, naku po, baka magkalimutan tayo. Marami sa aming mga tatay, lalo na sa kaming mga medyo tumatanda na, nagiging matampuhin, nagiging sentimental. So don't forget, Father's Day, baka yun na lang ang araw na yun ang pagkakataon mong umareglo, magbigay galang, magpasaya, palampasin mo pa. Naku po, wag, so that you will be blessed. Let's now move forward to our interview program. Let's check on a good friend of the program, someone who has always been gracious and given us time. Ayan na po, gracious na, gwapo pa. The chairman of the MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos Dasan. O chairman, in-honor mo na ba yung father mo?
Yes, Cito. Una-una, magandang umaga sa inyong lahat, no? Yes, my dad. Kagabi pa kami magkasama. Kami magkakapatid. And, tama ka, no? Iba yung magulang mo habang nandiyan pa talagang ibuhos mo sa kanilang dalawa, no? Lalo na ngayong pandemya. And I'm glad about that passage of the Bible na sinabi mo. It's very timely ngayon. Tsaka, I'm so, yung sinasabi mo tungkol sa dad mo is one of my hero during the EDSA revolution. Is a very good writer. Ang tapang ng daddy mo. Talagang lahat nilalabanan niya basta mali. No? I'm just so, natutuwa ako na yung mga passages na binabasa mo, lahat talaga mapupulutan natin ng aral lalo na ngayon. No? Dapat talaga manmanin natin ang Biblia. Di ba? Thank you, Tito. Thank you for this. Thank you talaga.
Well, thank you for recognizing that, Chairman. Actually, alam mo, ito yung isang challenge ko. Naghahanap ako ng Bible verse on how to solve the traffic.
Pareho tayo.
Paano ba gagawin natin dyan sa traffic? Anyway, kidding aside, Chairman, medyo mukhang, as we are dealing with COVID surges, you in the MMDA are now having to deal with a different surge. The surge of the economy opening up and the surge of commuters, the surge of traffic. Well, it comes with authority, with the territory, sorry, as we normalize. But medyo nasulat ko nga sa column ko na baka dapat mag-research tayo dahil may mga kumpanya naman na even the employees themselves tell me, Sir, di naman namin kailangan mag-report sa opisina. Nagagawa naman namin yung mga trabaho namin na to. Ang kulit lang talaga ng mga may-ari. Gusto kaming nakikita.
Well, yes, tama ka ron, Cito, no? Siguro it's about time when we think of traffic problem, it's not just about yung road capacity, vehicle, pero tama ka yung mga underlying causes or possibly mga possible solutions, no? Mukha niyang work schedule, etc. Kasi ang first premise dito, tignan muna natin ng EDSA, no? Ang EDSA is just really built for 300,000 capacity, eh. Nung before pandemic, Sito, yung 300,000, umabot tayo ng almost 405,000. No? Kaya kung doon mo makikita, 100,000 plus ang tinaas nito. No, this was July 8, 2019. Nagpagawa kami ng study rito. At ngayon, pinakuha namin Sito ng tatlong nagpakuha ko ng data kasi I should always be guided by data here sa aming traffic engineering. So, nung ito'y nagkaroon tayo ng pandemya, nung during the pandemic, which was November 25, 2020, ang one of the lowest, from 405, naging 366 tayo, 366,000. Ito yung medyo maluwang-luwang ang EDSA noon. Pero nung nag-operate na ang NLEX at SLEX, nagpakuha ulit ako ng data. No January 16, which is GCQ, ito'y tumaas ng 383,000. Halos yun na ngayon. Itong January, if you will recall, January, yung halos normal na tayo, kakatapos ng Pasko, naglalabasan na mga tao. So kung titignan mo, malapit na rin sa 400,000 na pre-pandemic. No? Ganon sitwasyon. At ngayon, ganon na rin na sitwasyon natin. Halos doon na tayo. Konti na lang, doon na tayo sa pre-pandemic time. Kaya nag-iiba lang ito, let's say, kamukha nung May 6, nung nagkaroon ng bagong variant, if you will recall, nag-dip na naman siya ng another mga 10,000. So every time may nangyayaring mga bagong status tayo, nagdi-dip siya. But sa ngayon, let's expect the worst. Let's expect it na ang pre-pandemic na 405, sana wag naman tayo umabot doon dahil nga ang laking tulong nito sa Skyway, easily ma-reduce tayo ng mga 10,000 to 15 or even the most is 20. No? So we are really looking at that, no? Kung anong mga gagawin natin dito at anong mga policies na dapat nating i-apply.
Okay, but I have to be realistic and I have to be fair. Yung ginagawa nyo mga patakaran, how much of it is seriously affected by political considerations and public relations? Kasi alam ko naman na kada may sinusubukan ng MMDA, kahit ng panahon pa ng tatay ninyo, etc., laging may pumapalag. Isa na nga ako dun sa mga kontratista. Laging kumokontra. No? Pero as you get older, you get wiser and you realize na things really need to change. And as Father Nicanor Austriaco said yesterday, Father Nick, one person making a sacrifice for 110 million is not too big a sacrifice. Now, in this situation, how much of your policy making, kasi matagal ko nang pinaglalaban yan nabigyan ng power yung MMDA chairman over and above all the mayors. Ano ba ang realidad that politics dictate on MMDA solutions?
Well, actually, the best politics is the output. Kung anong kung magandang performance mo, kung may output ka, and if really people will see you're just really trying your best, for me, that's more than enough, given the situation right now. As I've told you, Cito, our capacity is just 300,000, but
Yeah.
Ito yung para sa akin. Ano? Number one, we must really maximize our mass transport system, meaning the LRT and the bus carousel. Ngayon, of course, maraming pros and cons about the bus carousel. Pero sa akin naman, dahil bago ako rito, no, nakita ko, before ang bus carousel kasi, ang mga buses, they occupy 2 lanes on the right or even 3. No? Talagang walang
Yes.
disiplina yan maski lagyan mo. So, in that sense, I will say that bus carousel is really effective. Except that lately, no, this is being managed by the DOTR. Ang ginawa kasi nila, nilibre nila yung pasahe. So of course, sa mga tao would rather get the buses than the LRT, and figures will bear this out, no? So importante lang talaga rito ay ma-dispatch ng DOTR maigi ang mga buses. I think ang buses nila diyan, kung di ako nagkakamali, malaki ang binawas Kaya dapat siguro, dapat dagdagan na lang nila ito, and at the same time, dapat huwag mabubulunan. Dapat dire-diretso ang flow. Doon naman kami tumutulong, no? Yung sa labas. Tumutulong kami. So,
Sorry, Chairman, what about
Yes.
going back to a state-owned, state-operated bus system? Because alam ko, in other countries, particularly in Europe, the buses aren't privately owned. They are either locally operated or state-owned.
Well, pwede pag-aralan yan, Cito, no? But of course, again, you will have to go through a lot of process here. But in the meantime, we have so much problems in our hands. So whatever we have right now, we must make sure it will really work, no? So the only best solution here is to make sure that there are enough buses, and of course, they are flowing smoothly. And number two, no, ito nga kasi I promised the public when I was appointed as MMDA, yung tinatawag na elevated bus ramp in the intersection, no? Siguro next week magpapatawag ako ng press conference kasi pinaayos ko na ito, and when I got the billing for this, I was so shocked, no? Siguro report ko na lang sa public ito next week, medyo when I get all of the documents.
Yung sinasabi mong shocked you, Chairman, were you shocked for the quotation? Kasi pag sinabi mong billing, iba yung billing. Billing gawa na.
No, I'm sorry. Quotation. Yeah, tama. You're right there. Pinag-aralan ko, medyo nabigla ako. So, i-report ko na lang.
Bakit? Magkano ba? Pasensya ka na.
Kasi mahulog ka sa silya mo
Hindi. Okay lang kasi may kilala akong mayaman na kayang-kaya yan. At saka, ka-idea niya yan. Magkano bang estimate na binigay sa'yo?
Medyo mataas.
Umabot ba ng bilyon? Hindi naman siguro.
Okay, sasabihin ko na sa inyo, no? The price is about 400 million for one intersection.
Wala, small time yan. Sasabihin ng best friend mo si Ramon Ang. Kasi si Ramon Ang ang may idea niyan. Na-elevate natin lahat yan.
But how many intersections do we have, Cito?
Aba, di kumuha ka na lang ng isang ninong kada intersection, di ba? Kasi, I mean, look, pasensya ka na, Chairman, I just want to honor the businessmen of this country, starting with MVP, Ramon Ang, the Ayalas, Razon, kasi they've all stepped up. And you know, and to the credit of their stockholders and shareholders, maski na yung mga shareholders hindi pumalag when these big corporations and these CEOs all decided na it's time to give back to the country. Pasensya ka na, alam mo, makulit ako at saka optimistic ako.
Tama naman. Well, it's like this kasi, Cito, no? Kaya ko rin i-report, it's like this. When you call it elevated bus ramp, no? Ibig sabihin, ang mga bus, dahan-dahan lang ang takbo niyan Dahan-dahan, para sa dire-diretso. Hindi naman every time nandun yung bus no?
Yeah.
So for me, instead of spending 400 million, why not just spend 2 million, 3 million for just a simple traffic light, may tao na nandun, ini-stop mo yan, dire-diretso naman ang U-turn, which is happening right now, na ginawa namin. And I think it's working. Ako kasi, lahat ito, pera ng gobyerno, pera ng MMDA ito. No? Pinag-iingatan ko lang naman, I mean, spending for one intersection, 400 plus million, parang masyadong nalulula lang ako. No? Hindi ko nga alam kung kaya ko ipanghingi pa ito dahil of course pandemya, maraming gastos yung iba, no? Pero okay, I get your point. Maraming gustong tumulong. I'll try my best here. Pero titignan ko muna itong system natin dahil hindi naman kailangan mabilis ang takbo ng bus. The most is siguro 20, less than 30 kilometers per hour at hindi naman parating nandyan yan. No? So titignan ko mga ilang buwan muna kung po pwedeng gano'n. At least malaki ang maititipid naman, Cito. Although it's a great idea, pero yung nga, medyo, it could be spent for something else. Yun naman ang sa akin. Ngayon, kung talagang hindi kaya, madali naman. I-program natin. What is important here, Cito, is that I'm being transparent to the public and to everyone. So, para alam naman nila where we're going to.
Okay, tama po yun, Chairman. Pasensya ka na kinulit kita kasi
Tama naman.
hindi kasi gustong malaman ng tao yun eh. Yung kumbaga magkano ba talaga yan? Baka naman kaya kong kunin sa alkansya ko yan. Okay, we'll go for a quick break, Chairman, and when we come back, let's talk about the other solutions or other concerns that you may have as Chairman of the MMDA. We'll be right back after this 1-minute break. Okay, welcome back to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and you are watching us via Cignal TV channels 8 and 250. Let's welcome back MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos, the son. Okay, Chairman. Baka sabihin nila kasi biglang yung tatay mo nagkaroon ng ano ba yun, yung stem cell. Biglang ba't bumata si Ben? Okay, Chairman, balikan natin itong mga pinag-uusapan na. So, your one solution is the elevated bus terminal or whatever you call it, and then sabi mo it's a choice between 400,000 or maybe a 2 million, 400 million to a 2 million signalite. So, well, we can try. Kung hindi naman mag-click, pwedeng ilipat, di ba? No problem. Yes. And then, pakiusapan na yung mga magigiting na mga MVP, RSA, Ayala, Sobels, etc. and Razon. Now, what about other solutions? Kasi medyo mumurahin ako ng mga viewers dito, pero Singapore, ang ginawa nila, they basically said, we will not prevent people from owning cars. We will just make it very expensive, especially to go into the city centers. Kasi may mga ibang ideya na maglagay na lang ng toll booth dyan sa EDSA from the beginning and the end. Pag hindi nabawasan yung mga namamasyal.
Well, actually, Cito, actually, kung ang problema mo is if the volume, which is right now, is already exceeding the capacity of the road, you have no other recourse pero yung sinasabi mong volume reduction program. Kasi it's very obvious. Talagang it's only built for 300,000 and yet pre-pandemic it's 405, unless may mga bagong tulay, bagong kalye, bagong alternative routes, which is happening right now. Just about last week, nag-open na itong Santa Monica Bridge. Yung sa inyo, sa Pasig, connecting Kalayaan muna sa Makati. of course, malaking bagay ito, no? Maiiwas na sila sa Guadalupe at sa EDSA, and probably after a month or 2 months, diretso ng BGC, no? At hindi lamang yun, kung di ako nagkakamali, next month, July or August, yung parallel bridge which is connecting Mandaluyong naman to Makati. So those coming from Manila, from Mandaluyong, hindi na dadaan ng EDSA. Diretso na kagad sila sa mga bridges na to, and so is doon naman sa Pasig, no? So may mga alternatibong routes. At I received a invitation kanina, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, ito yata yung LRT. Hindi lang ako sure kung ito yung sa Marikina to Masinag, no? At saka yung may dalawa yan, may isa pa to Bulacan, to Commonwealth. I think ito yung Marikina station. So habang bumibilis ang mga infrastruktura, talagang malaking gaang naman dito sa EDSA. Ngayon, ito lang ang sa akin, no? One thing, if you're going to talk of vehicle reduction program, tignan muna natin itong color coding. Kasi pwede ka naman natin kagad i-apply itong color coding kung talagang hindi na manageable. Pero
bakit nga ba hindi nyo na i-apply ang color coding? Marami ng motorista nagsasabi, parang awa nyo na, balik na natin yung color coding.
Okay, ganito lang kasi, no. There are two reasons, Cito, no, so that the public would bear me out. Number one is the IATF regulation tungkol sa 1 seat apart, no. Sa totoo lang, mamaya tamang-tama pag-uusapan nyo siguro about the viruses, about the new Indian variant, no. Kaya nga, we must never let our guards down here. Medyo itong variant na to in UK, they're experiencing something else. May ano sila ron. Ang sa akin lang is that 1 seat apart na ito, no, baka mamaya once i-color coding namin at hindi ka na makagamit, magsisiksikan na sa isang sasakyan, no? At pangalawa, our public transport is not yet normal. Hindi pa siya normal, kaya pinapabayaan muna namin gamitin ng tao. So just give us time. Anyway, nakatutok kami rito, no? Titingnan namin talaga if it really reaches that level, magbe-breach na ito na a certain number sa aming traffic engineering, iaano namin ito, pero hihingi kami ng guidance sa IATF, no?
Okay, Chairman,
Yes,
pasensya ka na, no? Kasi napag-isipan ko lang, no, na I just realized during the lockdowns, many people managed to carry on running their companies without having to go to the companies. So parang if you go back, parang nagawa naman nila noon, why can't they continue doing it now? That's one. Number two, we seem to parang pinayagan nating, and my apologies to those who might feel I'm referring to them, I'm not. Para tayo nagpakawala ng mga kabayo sa koral, nakalabas na lahat yung mga kotse sa EDSA ngayon, and they actually displaced the bikes and the motorcycles. We were leaning towards, kasi the bus carousel, I have to say, that's a good idea. That's a good project. It just needs better management and remove any politics or whatever behind it, no? Second, we did the bike lanes, which is also very good, but not good enough. And then, wala pa rin yung motorcycle lanes, dedicated protected motorcycle lanes. So parang, ang nangyari, sinabi lang na, sige, let's normalize a little, pinakawalan na naman natin yung mga kotse. I'm a car owner. I don't ride motorcycle, but it just seemed like the MMDA, DOTR, the government were headed towards the right direction, and suddenly parang biglang naulyani, bumalik na naman sa dati.
Well, totoo yun, no? Dahil biglang nagbago tayo ng mga quarantine status. Alam naman natin na halos ilang buwan talagang ang mga tao hindi sila makalabas. So para nasa tao, Cito no? Kaya nga ito muna ang bike lane, pag-usapan muna natin yung bike lane, no? Ang ginawa po namin dito, dahil before ang width ng mga lanes ng EDSA, they're really built for trucks and mga buses. So dati mga buses kaliwat kanan, nasa right, nasa gitna, kung nasaan sila. But ngayon, since they're just confined to the left most portion of EDSA, there's no more need now na malalaki pa rin ang mga white lanes natin, ang width. So what MMDA did, we called it lane dieting, no? So pinaliit namin ang width ng mga lane, pinaliit po namin 'yan, no? Yung mga white ones, yung white markers. So that gave us enough space right now for the right side, no? Sorry, what you're showing is that EDSA. That's different. That's
Sa Pasig yata ito eh. Okay, so City.
Oo. So
Pasensya ka
sa
na.
EDSA po, sa EDSA po, it gave us enough space for the bike. So yung 4 lanes mo hindi nagbago. 4 lanes ka pa rin. Kasi nga dinayat namin. Kaya yung nagsasabing lumiit dahil sa bike, hindi po, because you practically enjoy the same lane as pinagandaan po ito ng MMDA, no? Kaya yung pong lane ng bike, excess space na lang po iyon. Excess space na lang po iyon. So gusto ko lang i-clarify about that bike lane. Ngayon, yung sinasabi mo, Cito, about this other policies of government. Okay. Yung motorcycle, pinag-aaralan ng technical engineering namin yan. Like for example, if you go underpass, no, medyo masikip na. Basta underpass ka, like sa Cubao, meron ka na sa kaliwang buses, tapos dadalawa na lang ang linya mo, napakasikip. Pinag-aaralan namin na baka po pwede yung motorsiklo, imbis na makasikip sa ilalim, baka pwede sa ibabaw na lang. Doon sa may traffic light, no? So yung mga lugar na nakakasikip at masyadong baka po pwedeng mabilis naman na traffic lights natin ngayon, huwag na doon sa mga masisikip na lugar, no? So yun, it's under study right now by our traffic engineering group, no? And of course, yung sinasabi mong other policies, ang laking bagay talaga yung work from home, no? Yung scheduling. They've tried that before, maski pa ni Chairman Bayani, Chairman Tolentino, na wag sabay-sabay ang uwian. Kasi if you're going to look at EDSA, basta rush hour, grabe eh. No? And I'm talking of rush hour, that's between 7 to 10 and between 4 to 7. No? Ang off-peak natin is 12 to 21. And by the way, when we do our traffic count, we take into consideration sa umaga, binibilang namin yung speed sa 7 to 10 in the morning, yung peak, at yung 4 to 7 in the evening, and then yung off-peak at 12 to 2, and then we get the average. That's how we do things at the MMDA.
Okay, any other alternative to the number coding? Kasi parang kung hindi, awan ko is it safe to assume that within a week or two, you may actually implement number coding given public support for number coding?
Well, baka hindi lang siguro. It will really depend. No? We're monitoring this every day. At kung talagang tingin namin kailangan na implement, baka that given time, Cito, no? Yung sinabi mong window. No? Let us still see. Kasi nag-open pa ng mga bagong kalye. Tsaka yung mga isang nakakainis yung mga hukay eh. No? Kasi basta maghuhukay ka, nakakaimbudo, kaya yan ang una kong pinagawa, pinatawag ko yung mga naghuhukay ng EDSA, hindi na pwede iba-ibang kumpanya, isang kumpanya na lang, isang hukay, sama-sama na kayo. Kaya yan, kasi marami mga constructions ngayon along EDSA. Diba?
Nakakatakot yung bitaw ng salita.
Sorry.
Hukay, sama-sama na kayo.
Harmonize sila para hindi maghuhukay ulit. Sorry for the term.
No. I'm just injecting humor to our dialogue because I know you have so much headache. But okay, going back to all of these problems so chances are in a week, 2 weeks time, there is a probability for number coding. What about opening telling companies, kasi isa pa ito aside from yung motorsiklo na sumasakop ng iba-ibang lane, kanya pilit na pinupush ng tao na magkaroon na sila ng sarili nilang lane para hindi sila nakakabagal o nakaka-aksidente. The other thing that many people have said, why not tell deliveries to be done only at night? Kasi we always keep talking about opening the economy, but there seems to be a resistance to starting up a midnight logistics-based economy. Kumbaga, lahat ng mga delivery supplies sa gabi, magkakaroon ng karagdagang trabaho, mababawasan ng traffic, etc.
Well, inahanda namin lahat ito, no? Lahat ng policies na ganito, Cito. But let me tell you about things that happened before my time when I was chairman of MMDA. I believe it was the time of Chairman Danny Lim that traffic talaga was so terrible that MMDA passed this policy na hindi ka pwedeng dumaan sa EDSA na mag-isa ka lang sa sasakyan. Dapat at least 2 kayo o 3 kayo. Kung hindi ako nagkakamali, wala pa isang linggo na wala na yung policy na yun eh. No?
Mhm.
Talagang tama ka. Kuminsan yung popular tsaka hindi popular,
Mhm.
naghahalo yan eh. But don't you worry, pinapalistan namin lahat ito which we think is talagang dapat maging effective. No? Kasi
Okay.
ang premise ko ay napakasimple. This is just 300,000 and if the volume keeps on increasing na walang alternate routes, talagang ganyan na mangyayari sa atin. But right now, maganda naman ang nangyayari mga bagong tulay, mga bagong kalye, plus the NLEX and SLEX ni Mr. Ramon Ang, no? So far okay naman and the travel speed. Ang sa akin lang Sito, even if the volume is the same, ang travel speed is much better. Before it used to be, ito pinakuha ko yung data, it
Mhm.
used to be 11 kilometers per hour southbound. Ngayon, it's 24 kilometers per hour.
Mhm.
Yung sinasabi kong before, this was January of 2020, no? Before the pandemic.
Mm.
Okay? Tapos ngayon naman, itong June 15, naging from 11, itong June 15, 2021, naging 24 kilometers per hour.
Mhm.
This is from Monumento to Rojas Boulevard southbound. Sa northbound, maganda rin, mas mabilis pa rin ang ngayon, no? So, malaking tulong talaga yung nagkatulungan ng private and government, kamukha ni Mr. Ramon Ang, yung pinagawa niya NLEX at SLEX, malaking bagay po iyon, no?
Mhm.
Yung connected road na iyon. Yes.
Okay, Chairman, so we're going to our final last few minutes. Baka naman may mga concerns ka that you would like to air and kamustahin na rin natin yung kalagayan ng mga tiga-MMDA because, you know, we always talk about problems that the MMDA is dealing with, but we rarely get to ask or know about the status of the frontliners and the officials kasi malungkot nga na nawalan ng dating chairman dahil sa COVID, may mga nagkasakit na opisyal, sila Jojo Garcia. What other concerns do you have, Chairman?
Well, when I became chairman of MMDA, ang hirap dahil halos linggo-linggo, we have to close down one department after the other. I mean, partially closed down in the sense na grabe ang ginawa ng COVID. Yung
Mhm.
aming mga traffic enforcers nasa clearing, talagang nagkahawahan. And nagpa-vaccinate, no? Nagpa-vaccinate na at maganda vaccination namin. And you know what, Sito? In
Mhm.
2 weeks, 0 cases na ang MMDA. So, nakakatuwa, no? Wala nang kaso. And I'll just give you quickly, no?
Yeah.
Just show you, the people will also know. Ibang topic naman ito, it's about vaccination. Siguro as of June 14, no? 18 na po tayo ngayon. Ang first dose sa NCR is about 1.9 million. So siguro nakaka 2 million na tayo ngayon, no? At
Mhm.
ang average daily attack rate ng virus is 6.47 and the 2-week growth rate is negative 18.21. What am I driving at? Habang bumababa ang kaso natin, ito nga negative ng reproduction rate. Ang mga alkalde po natin ay talagang walang pagod, talagang mga doctors, lahat, pati private, tumulong na po, talagang dire-diretso po ang bakuna. Kaya please, pabakuna po tayong lahat. Napaka-importante nito.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Chairman Benhur Abalos Dasan. Lagi ako natutuwang ikaw ang nakakausap. You are so gracious and thank you. Please take care of yourself, your family, pati si Mayora, and we wish you all the best.
Yes, Sito. And happy Father's Day, Sito. Ha? Thank
Same
you.
to you, sir. Pag hindi ako nakatanggap ng hamon, ewan ko lang dito sa mga kapamilya ko din sa bahay. Okay, thank you.
Sito.
Okay. Yan po si Chairman Benhur Abalos and the time is 8:38 in the morning. Let's now go to our next guest. Medyo ito po divine coincidence kasi siya po ay dapat ma-interview natin regarding dengue dahil may mga developments regarding dengue. But by chance, I also need to ask her first regarding some serious developments that I picked up while monitoring developments on COVID. Let's bring in Dr. Lulu Bravo, the country's preeminent vaccine expert. Dr. Lulu, good morning to you, ma'am.
Good morning, Cito. And I'm not the most what you call eminent. I'm just an ordinary retired professor emeritus of the University of the Philippines College of Medicine.
Alam mo, Dr. Lulu, hindi ka naman naaabot sa yugtong yan kung tatanga-tanga, di ba? Eh, ikaw expert ka talaga. Masyado kang humble. Okay, anyway, Dr. Lulu, thank you for your time this morning. I want to give credit where credit is due, but I'm also thankful you're on the program today because I have something very serious in mind, a concern. As I was watching the news last night, international news, it seems that in Indonesia, over 300 health workers who were fully vaccinated last January all ended up with COVID. Most of them ended up with asymptomatic cases, but several dozen or maybe 24 or plus ended up in the hospital. Wala naman na reported deaths, but it brings to the front the concern na hindi nare-realize ng maraming tao na kahit na bakunahan ka na, ay pwede ka pa ring tamaan ng COVID-19. Could you give us insights on these things para maintindihan ng tao?
Yes, first of all, Cito, we always say, hindi po 100% efficacious ang mga bakuna. There will always be those that will fail in terms of vaccination. Kaya lang, this is very good kasi walang namatay. Ibig sabihin, although you may have it, but it will be mild or even asymptomatic, di ba? Yun naman ang lagi nating sinasabi, that it is effective against severe COVID or hospitalization or deaths actually. And then another thing, hindi ba? Ang sinasabi natin is the variants are coming. And there is a possibility that these patients, hindi nila sinabi kung ano yung mga variant or kung ano yung exact.
I forgot to mention.
So there is a possibility variant yon.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that it's the Delta variant, the Indian.
That's right.
In the Indian variant.
And even with other vaccines, even with Pfizer, even with Astra, even with J&J, there is a possibility that it can actually reduce the efficacy of any vaccine. And that's the reason why we have to vaccinate. Because then, the more vaccination you get into your population, the less this vaccine failure will come. And, the less mutation. And perhaps this is the way to go. And this is not really surprising, Cito.
Mm-hmm.
This is not surprising. We really have to prepare for that.
Okay, well, I just wanted to put that in front there kasi medyo hindi masyadong na-pick up ito pero nangyari yan this past week sa Indonesia and I don't want it to affect or have an effect on our vaccination program. Para alam lang ng tao na wag silang pag-aalagala, baka akala nila bulletproof na sila. Okay.
Ito ang proof. Ang mga na-ospital at namamatay yung hindi bakunado.
Okay. At yun yung namumulubi.
Isn't that a good, ang mga na-ospital talaga, lalo sa US, yung mga hindi bakunado, kaya talagang dapat. Ang messages natin is, pwede ba magpabakuna na kayo? Don't wait for COVID to strike you.
Okay, speaking of vaccination, speaking of remedies and viruses, let's talk about dengue. Kasi again, I picked this up in the monitoring of international news. There are hindi ko lang matandaan kung anong country, Singapore ba yun or wherever, where they actually developed a mosquito, they infected mosquitoes with a particular virus that when it comes into contact with particular dengue-carrying mosquitoes, yung Egyptian ba yun or something, na nababaog or nanyu-neutralize. And they call this a breakthrough against the global war against dengue. Now, I don't know if you've heard of that, but also maybe you could just give us an update on what's happening as far as dengue is concerned.
You're right, Cito. There is this called Wolbachia, spelled Wolbachia, Wolbachia mosquito, that is genetically modified. And this has really been the kind of the entomologists, the science of insects. They've been trying to really modify and try to do vector control. Talagang yung mosquito ang tingnan kung pwede talagang ma-eradicate, ma-eliminate, mabawasan. But you know what? If I were to be asked, of course, there are people na talagang science nila, mosquitoes. But to me, who has been a vaccine advocate, you cannot really eliminate all the mosquitoes even if you make them sterile. Even, babae lang ang kumakagat, babaeng mosquito lang. Mga babae lang ang kumakagat nga, kaya ginagawa nilang sterile yung mga babae para hindi na mga anak ng mga mosquitoes pa, diba? Because only female mosquitoes can bring about that virus. Ngayon, if you look at this, wow, ilang bilyong taon na ang mosquitoes dito sa mundo. You never can eliminate them. And then there are also questions about genetically modified things. Nobody really will be agreeing all the time. But look at it this way. I've been really feeling that what we need is a vaccine. Kasi look at 1954, 70 years ago, the first Philippine hemorrhagic fever was reported in the Philippines. Then slowly 10 countries reported. That was in the 50s. Do you know how many countries now have risk for dengue? 120 countries. What has happened in the last 70 years? Dumami pa ng dumami ang mga tao na naka-risk for dengue. And that's the reason that finally they put vaccination in the agenda of dengue control. Kasi noon, yung mga mahihirap lang na country kagaya ng Pilipinas ang naapektuhan ng dengue. So, walang magagawa ng mga trials, mga laboratory dyan kasi hindi naman bibili ang mga countries na mahihirap, hindi naman kayang bumili at hindi kayang makapagawa ng mga test dyan, diba? Then, what happened next? With the travel, with the mobilization, urbanization, wow, kumakalat na ang dengue. And in 2019, the World Health declared that dengue is one of the top global threats. Did you know that? Top 10 global threats. O anong nangyari? E di, nag-aumpisa na sila ngayon na gumawa ng mga paraan para hindi lang mosquito. Alam mo ba kasi nung una, mosquito ang pinapatay, ginagawa. Nandun yung commercial purpose ng mga mosquito control. But, everybody can say that. Eh, nag-umpisang mag-travel ang mga tao. Hindi na sila pupunta dun sa mga countries na maraming dengue unless meron silang protection. Di ba nung sa Brazil, noong 2016, sabi ng Brazil, naku, kailangan namin ng bakuna kasi walang pupunta dito ng mga athletes kung meron tayong dengue. That's why in 2016, only the Philippines and Brazil started the dengue program. Brazil, because they were really wanting to know that, people can still go to their country because of tourism. And that's the same with Philippines. Kasi kung marami kang dengue sa country mo, walang pupunta sa inyo.
Yeah, Dr. Lulu, Dr. Bravo, let's be specific, okay? Kasi I have been a endorser, hindi naman endorser, wala naman kumukuha sa akin for commercial, no? Pero
You are a believer.
I am a believer, supporter
Yes.
of the dengue vaccine. So much so that we sent our daughter, we gave her parental consent para mabakunahan siya for dengue. Yung sa, Dengbak siya ba tawag doon?
Right. That's the only one that is licensed so far.
Okay, now, to my recollection, there were 700,000 students or individuals who were vaccinated. And everybody was saying, delikado yan, delikado. People were worried, etc. And I never heard anything bad. What's the real score? What was the outcome of that vaccination program outside of all of the politics, hoopla, and paranoia?
Well, if you look at Brazil, which is the only country that simultaneously introduced dengue in 2016, nothing really as dramatic or as controversial as what happened in the Philippines. Yes, there were a few people who said, what happened in the Philippines, it might happen here also. But they continued on. And they're also using the vaccine. So there were, I'm sure, hindi naman laging unanimous yan. There were some people who objected kasi ganito. Alam mo naman, Brazil is also a political country. Diba?
Yeah, but
Even now with COVID.
yung the results, because now with COVID, with certain brands, we are talking. I mean, I'll be just for I mean, it's fact anyway.
Well, there's
Some
no
countries-
evidence that dengue vaccine caused deaths of those children, if that is what you wanted to ask.
Yeah, because
I'm sure people who would want to say, okay, where's the proof? There's no proof. There is
Okay.
no definite proof. There is no evidence. And we've seen that because, we've been doing COVID vaccination right now, right? 4 months. There were deaths after COVID vaccine, right?
yeah. There were, I mean, even abroad, there were blood clot concerns with AstraZeneca. They had that problem in the UK, etc. With Johnson and Johnson, some countries are phasing it out. I know in Holland they're talking about replacing it, etc. Pero wala naman tayong nadinig na kumbaga big numbers or recognizable numbers of concern.
Yeah, and that is precisely why we need to do causality assessment. And as you know, we have a team here, all experts, and there are more than 100 of them now because we have team of experts in 17 regions of the country, plus ours in the national AEFI, adverse events. And we look at what happens, why is a patient or why someone died or why someone was hospitalized. This is what we call scientific way of doing causality assessment, meaning to say, looking at the nitty-gritty details and saying, okay, is this related to the vaccine or not? And we did that also for dengue. Remember the first 14 case that were given to the UPPGH team to look at, and what did they conclude at the end of their investigation? You remember, there were 2 deaths of the 14 whom they called vaccine failure. And I know, I saw you writing that column about vaccine failure. It is not because of the vaccine, but despite of that vaccine. And as we all know, we cannot really say 100%. And you really need, that's also what's going on with the COVID, isn't it?
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, let's go for a quick.
Intindihin natin yan Cito. It's not anything na mangyari pagkatapos ng vaccination, presto, jump to conclusion.
Yeah, let's
Dahil
go
yan
for
sa
a quick.
bakuna. That's
let's
not the
go-
way it should be done.
Yeah, let's go for a quick break, Dr. Bravo, and when we return, carry on with this discussion, particularly regarding yung ito bang ADVA, Asian Dengue and Dengue Voice and Action Group, etc. And what exactly is a retiree like you doing with regards to dengue? We'll go for a quick break. We'll be right back here on Agenda. Okay. Okay, there you go. Medyo we are kind of overlapping this morning. I apologize for that because our executive producer, Gab Malyari, is out of the action. Tinutubuan po siya ng bagang. He's beginning to have wisdom tooth at ilang taon na ba si Gab? 30? 30 plus? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, Gab, we hope you are doing much better. Please take a rest and naunahan mo lang ako. Naunahan mo lang ako sa pahinga. Mabuti na yung nagpapahinga ng maaga. Okay, let's go back to our guest, Dr. Lulu Bravo. And let's ask, Dr. Lulu, ano ba itong Asia Dengue Voice and Action Group? And akala ko ba retired ka na? Bakit active ka na naman daw?
Binalik nila ako para magturo ulit sa College of Medicine as Professor Emeritus.
Okay.
But I'm still doing a lot of vaccine trials ito. In fact, I have three simultaneous, one for flu, one for polio, and one for COVID, and one for dengue. Apat pala. I'm doing
Okay.
vaccine trials now. So it's easier because now I don't have a full schedule for teaching. I used to be, under the the meetings of so many, when you're in the faculty. But right now, that's ADVA. I'm involved in this as a member of this Asian Dengue Voice and Advocacy because we really need that. As I said, it used to be, tayo lang mahihirap, tropical countries ang may dengue. But now, we have had the support of temperate countries too. You have the Europeans who wanted to go to dengue endemic countries for vacation. They need something to be used so that they can travel. Because dengue is, as I said, yan ang isang sakit na hindi ka pupunta sa isang bayan na maraming dengue. Ayaw mo magka-dengue, di ba? So ngayon, kuhanin mo na yung mga bakuna, yun ang gusto nila. Magkaroon na tayo ng bakuna because now it is a global threat. So we need, in fact, yan ang binibigay ngayon ng ADVA sa World Health. Pwede ba tayong magkaroon hindi lang ASEAN Day? It used to be just ASEAN Dengue Day. Now, the ADVA is working for a World Dengue Day on June 15, which is used to be the ASEAN Dengue Day lang. Oh.
Okay, what is
Yan ang
ADVA?
importansya kung bakit kailangan natin.
Okay, what is ADVA doing in advocating? Tamo naman ang ginamit pa, advocating yung vaccination in Asia because as it stands, we're the only country who was bold enough and courageous enough and smart enough to initiate dengue vaccination. Sa Asia ba marami ng countries na nagva-vaccinate o tayo pa rin?
Yes. Cito, 22 countries now are going for vaccination. Singapore is one, as you said, nagpunta ka Singapore para doon mag-vaccinate, diba? Thailand is another. And there are others, Vietnam, and 22 countries including the US, in Puerto Rico. US territory din yan.
Yeah.
And in parts of Florida, yung mga tropical, yung may mainit, because the mosquito, what we call the Aedes aegypti mosquito, can now survive even in a lower temperature countries. Kaya nga nagiging global threat because you can get that mosquito inside your travel bag, inside your maleta, at tapos nadadala mo kung saan-saan. At meron ng community transmission. Kung dumating yung mosquitoes doon at nakapag-breed siya at nakagawa sila ng mga posibleng, adaptable mosquitoes. So, ang ginagawa nung iba, vector control. Kaya lang ako, pwede rin yan. Talagang pwede kang mag-strategize, vector control, all the 4 S's that we have. But in the long run, what have we to show for 70 years of vector control and mosquito nets and all the cleaning and fogging and hygiene? We just increased the peak of our dengue every 2 to 3 days. In 2019, we had the highest report of more than 400,000 cases of dengue with more than 1,000 deaths from dengue. That was in 2019.
What
and they
about
said, yes,
2020?
bumaba ngayon. Bumaba, 55%. But it doesn't mean na kampante ka na because dengue peak or yung outbreaks ng dengue comes every 2 to 3 year cycle. The biggest before 2019 was sometime in, I think, before that, yung biggest was 2010. Well, all over, it was like all the ASEAN region 2010, ang taas-taas din. Thailand, Indonesia, everybody. And then somewhere a smaller peak in between 2010 and 2019. But
What
that
is
is a
the-
peak that always comes out like that. It's a roller coaster. We call it a roller coaster.
What's the message of ADVA for the Philippines? Because we're down to our last minute, Dr. Lulu, and sorry I had to rush you. What is the message of ADVA for the Philippines?
Well, we need to exert more strategies, more efforts. Hindi na sufficiente yung mag-vector control, mag-4S ka, search and destroy. Hindi na kulang na yun eh. We have to be more vigorous, more aggressive in the way of control of dengue. And the best way to do that is through advocacy and communication. You know, the reason we failed in the dengue vaccine introduction is kulang na kulang po ang communication and advocacy na nangyari bago yan.
Was it a failure
Diba?
of communication and information and not the failure of the vaccine?
No, I don't think so. It was mostly failure to communicate, risk communication ang tawag doon. Ano yung risk? Hindi komot na bakunahan ka. Kagaya ngayon, if you know what is going on with the COVID, had we done that, diba, for the dengue, we would have succeeded. I'm sure we would have succeeded.
Okay.
And right now,
Well-
we will be enjoying a much more a way to fight dengue.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lulu. Bravo, and please keep in touch. I'm sure we will be talking more about ADVA and also about our fight against dengue. Have a good day,
All
Doctora.
vaccine preventable diseases, ito. All vaccine preventable. We want to see a world that can be control, or that will have free of vaccine preventable, because there is a high incidence of deaths in this, just like
Okay.
COVID now.
Thank you very much. And that's
Thank you very much, Tito.
And that's today's agenda. I'm Cito Beltran. Please keep it here on Cignal TV channels 8 and 250 for the latest news. And we are One News.